Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about palm stick or Olisi Palad, which would be the Filipino name for it, or the Kubatan or the Kubatan. And I'm going to rely on some notes here because there's lots of information on this, and there's many different ways that this particular kind of weapon of deception has been classified and been called over the many years. So firstly, I'm going to show how to make a Kubatan or a Kubaton, and basically it's just going to be a keychain, right? So we drill a hole in there and we put a keychain link and a ring in there, and you know, now you have something that has keys on it that you can flail if you want to, but you'll also have an impact weapon here. We'll talk more about that later. The Olisi Palad, we're going to also make these, is basically more kind of permanent, meaning this is in your hand like so, because we attached some cordage here. We drilled some holes and attached some cordage there, and that means I can open my hand and I can grip, I can grab, I can change to a hammer grip or sock grip or a thrusting grip. I can change to an ice pick grip or a pakal grip like that, or I can just hold it straight in the middle and use the weapon interchangeably like so. And again, I've made two of these so they can be both for either weapon, for either hand, excuse me. I'm using specific dimensions for these, and this is from a larger one. These are about 5.5 inches long and approximately like 2.25 inch in diameter or around. These, and traditionally that would be the length, they're like 5.5 inches, but it depends on your hand. Okay, this is approximately like a 6.5 inch long one, a big one. I actually like this, I mean, from a fighting standpoint, but like to hold as a keychain or to be able to tuck in my pocket, I prefer this size. Okay, you know, if I was to make this to a Olisi Palad, which was kind of my intention, but I think I want to kind of keep it like that just to demonstrate that you don't necessarily have to have it all elaborate like that. I want to keep it like this, right? Now notice the ends. What's important is the ends here, right? Each one of these are approximately an inch. Okay, these are probably 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches past my fist. Okay, so it's about 1 inch here, about 1 inch there. Okay, so irregardless of how wide your hand is, that's kind of the rule of thumb that I would think would be adequate. Okay, additionally, there are some that are very combat oriented, especially amongst the Kubatans, where they would make the ends like very pointed. Okay, or you'd be able to fix blades to them and all this and that and the other thing. So both of these ends of this would be real pointed, and which would allow for pain compliance, because there's a lot of ripping and tearing of the muscles and attacking the nerve centers and the bone centers. From a combative standpoint, I don't really rely on a whole lot of pressure point compliance techniques. Only from and I say this only from my many years as working in the door, working as a bouncer, bar security, and that you're dealing with people who are already under the influence of whatever. Okay, plus they're at the bar, so they get more inebriated, and the pain compliance just goes out the window. You'd be surprised. So you really want to manipulate the joints and the connective tissues to basically, whether they're compliant with pain or not, their body just can't move because you've got control of that particular part of their body, the joints and things like that, which leads into different targets, right? Nerve centers, like the eyes, bridge of the nose, temple, under the jaw, trachea, throat. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because you can collapse the windpipe. Think of the windpipe as a straw. And the windpipe, you know, like plastic, can collapse, and it's very difficult to. It doesn't pop back like rubber. It will just actually collapse. So when you're attacking the trachea on somebody, you can really cause some damage that's irreversible. So I would advise against that. But in a true self-defense, life and death situation, that's a viable target. Inside the clavicle, the sternum, grabbing meat of the pectorals, grabbing meat of the stomach, inside of the thigh, inside of the brachial, or the where your biceps are, the forearm area, okay, the back of the hand, bony parts, things like that. So those would be target areas. I want to cover that more in detail in another video. Right now this video is just focused on making a palm stick, and you know, how you do it, you know, that's on you. That's about the training, is putting the time in, the flight time, etc., etc. Plenty of information out there. I'm going to try to give you some ideas later on in another video, but to segue into possibly some other ideas. Again, I'm making these out of rattan that I've already, you know, treated and tried to make look pretty with my foil tape. Bad job, but with my foil tape and this and that, you don't have to do this, okay? I'm just kind of sticking with something that looks very traditional from a Filipino martial arts standpoint. You can paint these how you want to, you can burn these how you want to, you can add the foil tape or not add the foil tape, so on and so forth. The sky's the limit for your decorative predilections, right? Again, you can have a Kubatan, but then put Olisi Palad lanyard or finger lanyards on here too. I don't think that's necessarily really, and I think it's kind of overkill. I think it's, you know, because again, you would always have, or you already have keys on there to flail or to hit with, plus backup for whatever you would need to do. So, but you know, whatever, you know, you do what you want to do, or whatever fits you. Now, some other ideas, right? Some of you that are familiar with the Jason Bourne series, there's the first movie for the Bourne trilogy or whatever. He uses a pen or a pencil to defeat his attacker. Okay, so again, this is, you know, you can hold a pencil. I mean, it's not, you would have to be very specific about the targets that you aim for, but it can definitely be used. Okay, and these are weapons of deception, meaning you use them to get to your primary weapon, whether it be a handgun, a stick, or a bat, a larger knife, you know, a sword, or whatever. Okay, so you know, you can use a pencil. Okay, this is a big Sharpie. Okay, again, these are about the same width as a Sharpie, by the way. You know, so you can use a Sharpie, same thing. You know, you just want to have enough space to where you can hit either forward or backwards on it. It also loads your fist, right? It loads your fist and making your fist harder. If you put a roll of quarters in there, if you were to put a roll of quarters in here, it would load your fist and make your fist more impactful. From a self-defense standpoint, unless you really have conditioned your knuckles or your fingers, your hands, hitting with your fist is not advisable. You will break your hand, you'll break your knuckles. That's another conversation. I think I covered that in another video as it relates to wrapping your hands for training, boxing, panantukan, etc., etc. But if you're conditioned for that kind of contact, you would load your fist. Okay, so that's, you know, the Sharpie will come in handy for that sort of thing, right? And then to be real creative, and I could probably go all over the house and pull out all kinds of instruments, but I want to create a concept that you can just use. Again, this is just an old remote control, same thing, you know, in a pinch, it'll work. It's plastic, it's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt them more than it hurts you. It might even shatter and break, which creates shrapnel, which will probably create even more damage if that's what's needed to stop an attacker, or at least stun them enough to get to your primary weapon or to escape from a self-defense standpoint. So again, this is just to give you some ideas of improvised weaponry amongst weapons of deception. Okay, so I'm gonna put some information down below, and some links down below that'll give you even more information that I'm remiss at even be able to relay off the top of my head. But mainly this is about making, you know, a Kubatan and Olisi Palad from scratch, and I'm using you know, and I'm using, again, you know, rattan stick, a thinner one. Rattan, again, as I've expressed before, this is just good. It's a vine that if you treat it in a particular way and mold it, you make furniture and things out of it. It's quite strong but lightweight, but it's not a instrument for fighting per se. It's just not that heavy duty like that. And it frays before it shatters. That's why it makes it a good training weapon and impact weapon in the Filipino martial arts. So what I use these smaller ones, again, these are like a 2.5 inch in diameter around. I will pad these. I'll put some foam around them and put duct tape around them, and I have videos on how to do that as well for training, for actual impact training where you don't really hurt your training partner. But this is what I would use as my basis for making, you know, a bunch of these, right? So again, I will go into that, and we'll go ahead and start making some of these. Alright, on this piece that I've already kind of decorated, as you can see, I've already fired it a little bit. I didn't put any polyurethane, and I don't think I sealed it with wax on the ends. I do have a video on how to do that. I'll put the link below. But this is a smaller stick that I could use. It's usually used for kids for training Filipino martial arts, so they can slowly build up their wrist strength. Or this could be the core of a padded stick, so that you can have more realistic training and contact. But in the meantime, what we have here is just an extra piece here that's already decorated, so I don't have to go through all that. And what I want to do is I'm going to saw the pieces that I need. What I'd like to do is make 2 keychain Kubatans, and then 1 Olisi Palad that I'm trying to get out of here. So I'm gonna get the saw in here. I got my little hacksaw, and there's carpeting on the floor. I know. It's a thing called a vacuum cleaner, whatever. But yeah, I can just take this and I can just start sawing. Most people I'm sure are familiar with that. So I'm just gonna saw here. I've got 3 components. These already have the treatment, you know, with the metal tape, metal wrap tape, which I'm gonna make these into keychains. This one will be another Olisi Palad piece, because it's, you know, I haven't really done anything like that. But what you want to do next, and then of course there's the throwaway piece, but I'll find a use for it some way, somehow. But what we want to do now is you can take your file and your sandpaper and just start shaping it. If you have a sander, you can really shape these into like points or whatever. That's a whole nother conversation, but there are designs for points on there. But for now, I'm going to leave them blunt for civilian carry. You don't want to be walking around with something that looks dangerous. Anyways, these are the pieces that we're going to be working with. And we're going to make a keychain out of one of them and Olisi Palad out of the other. Okay, so like I said, use sandpaper or a file, and you can start to sand your edges so they're not so sharp edges. Now again, you know, from a combative standpoint, who cares, right? But from a comfort standpoint, as you're training with it, you know, it's better to have kind of a rounded edge, just for your own safety as well. But at this point, you can start to shape your ends on here. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the middle of this, and basically what we want is where the index finger is going to wrap around the middle. Okay, now the way that this fits is you at least want to have an inch on each side. You want to have a decent impact area going inward or backwards, and about an inch. Again, some people's hands are bigger than others, so I'm using 5.5 inch cuts, right? So for my fist, this kind of works, you know, without having too much of a, you know, too big of a stick, right? Your hands may be smaller, maybe bigger. Rule of thumb, I guess, would be make sure you have at least an inch from each side, right? An inch, for approximately an inch from each side. That's what you want, okay? And then for this, I want my thumb in the middle. I can find the middle point by measuring it, and then taking a pen or a marker or a pen to just kind of fit it in there. And then we're just going to drill some holes. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but I've made some marks with a metallic Sharpie. The straight line is kind of the middle, and I'm not being too, I could measure. I mean, some people are very fastidious like that, and that's fine. You can be equidistant, you know, it's about 1/4 inch on either side of that, whatever, 1/8 of an inch on each side of that, whatever. The point of the matter is to have two dots, or two places, or two drilling points off of center. Okay. Now for this next step, you may need to wear some workman's gloves or whatever to protect your hands. I have my little chopping board that I like to use for certain projects, like this one, and I'm just going to start to drill my starter holes, right, straight up and down. And then for my other hole, same thing. Now I'm using a bigger drill bit to make a bigger hole for the size of the string that I'm using. I'm using 550 cord. So it's a quarter, about 1/4 of an inch in diameter, if you will. So I need to make the hole a little bigger. That's why I needed the starter bit. You know, if I was just using any other sort of smaller diameter cord, strong cordage, that would be done right now, right? But we'll be okay. Okay, so being very careful and very steady. Again, I should have some sort of gloves on, or actually have a jig that this doesn't move in, but we'll make it work. Going straight down, slowly. See, that's fine. What the hell just happened? We made it through. Side. Same thing on this side here. Tighten a bit, a little bit. Go down. Okay, so we have two holes here, which we will utilize, and I'm just going to kind of take light sanding to it to get rid of some of the rough edges. Okay, and they'll wear off over time. Okay, so this is kind of our base framework for the Olisi Palad. This is our base framework for the Olisi Palad. Okay, so to make the Kubatan or the Olisi Palad keychain, again, we're only going to do one end here, and we're going to use our starter bit, which is of 5 30 of an inch, and that's just to start it off so we can make a bigger hole. Okay, and I'm going down about 1/4 of an inch from the top. Okay, so this actually makes a good marker here, the little hole or the burn mark, which will be a good target area to do this, so we'll be all right. So now we're going to switch to a larger bit, which is going to be a 3/8 bit. So we're going to be doing a 3/8 bit next, just to make sure we can run a key ring through. But it's nice to always start off with a good starter. A hole first, so you're not trying to drill through something that won't let you drill through it. Now this is a larger bit, so I need to be extra careful with it, but we're going to go straight down. through the other hole as well. And so we have a nice hole that should fit a key ring. We're just going to sand this up so that it is nice and smooth, and it'll wear in over time. Again, with a good file, you can shape the whole top of it, make it nice and domed, or however you choose to do it. But that's essentially it. It's not that difficult, you know, not that difficult at all. And again, I get some rougher sandpaper, kind of finish this off so it's nice and shapely. I'll do that to my other one, and we should, then it's just finishing up. Okay, so to finish up with our Olisi Palad project, I mean, after you've sanded and shaped it and cleared off how the holes are and everything like that, made it all pretty and professional like, what you do is you take, this is about approximately 9 inches of, I'm using 550 paracord. That's what I'm doing. And we want a configuration like that, right? And what I'm doing here is I want to measure. Everybody's fingers and measurements in their bodies are different than everybody else's. So I don't want to make it like too snug. I don't want to make it too loose, okay? With that being said, you see how I've got this kind of fingered on my hand, right? Or measured on my hand with my middle finger. Next, I mean, there's many ways you could tie this off. I'm just going to do a double overhand loop, which with the 550 cord makes it kind of easy to adjust. You can use any other sort of type of cordage that you choose. This all going to have its pros and cons, right? So that starts to kind of slow up the amount that I get to use, right? Okay, so this for me right now, this is about right. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to hold on to my little knot here. I probably want to shore up on my knot, meaning I probably like tighten it, and then again double check. Make sure I can easily slip my finger in there for the most part. Pull it a little bit so that the knot loosens up. Right? So when I need to get this, I can get it in there fairly easily. Right? So what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to actually give it another little tug. Okay. Yeah, now this feels about right for me, okay? For you, it's going to be different, depending on what type of cordage you're using, etc., etc. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to take, one thing about 550 cord is it's flammable, right? So what I can do is I can start to kind of make this so that these start to, the fibers or the cordage starts to melt together. This will cause everything to kind of bind together, so it won't come undone too easily. Okay, so that's about right. Be careful, do not burn yourself. Okay, I'm using a lighter here. Just want the knot to bind and stick to one another, so it doesn't come loose too easily. Then next, because you know 9.5 inches, that gives us a little bit more to work with. I can cut off the loose ends here. Okay, be careful not to burn yourself. Little children or dogs and pets and all that. And I'm just going to sear everything and make sure that everything binds to itself. Okay, and you can take the back of your lighter or heating tool or whatever to pat everything together. Because it's basically plastic, it's just going to melt together. And that's the point. That's the object. Okay? So this ain't going nowhere. Okay? Wait for this to cool down a bit before I get to try this out. Okay? So I don't burn my fingers, right? burn my hand. But yeah, this is about a good fit. It'll stretch a little bit. But there we go. I mean, in a pinch, this is what this is. Okay? And you can still grab with it. You can shape and poke and prod with it. You can do the same with the backhand. On the backhand strokes. Right? Forehand strokes, backhand strokes. But it's best to hold it straight in the middle. Forehand strokes, backhand strokes. Okay? And then it doesn't leave your hands too easily. And you can still grip and grab if you need to. Alright? Now, to further make it pretty, I've got this foil tape that you can get from the hardware store. Usually in the HVAC section. The heating and vacuum and air conditioning section. And I'm gonna use probably about this much. And this is just purely decoratory. This says you can spray paint this whole thing black, green, blue, camouflage. I don't care. The whole point of the matter is we're just going to give, for this, we're just giving some decoration. Again, you can get foil tape anywhere. Filipino martial arts, we kind of like to do that because sometimes you can add a flash which can temporarily blind an opponent, just so you know, or reflective, as a reflective measure. So one way to look at it. So what I like to do with these is I can kind of cut these in, I don't know, thirds, right? I'm going to try my best to do this on camera. So that's 1/3. Try to make these about equidistance or equal width, like that. I'll put that one aside. And so this is how we decorate our ends, right? Because then you can take the tape, just peel this off, and it's pretty strong stuff too. Once you stick it on there, it wants to stay. So all I'm doing is just kind of trying to make sure that it stays in place. And sometimes I put on 2 or 3 layers of this to make it extra thick. But again, it's costume. It's costume. It's not an actual metal band. Okay, this is all costume. Costume magic, as they say. So this doesn't mean anything other than you're just making it pretty. It's not going to serve any purpose other than maybe leave evidence. I'm not going to further comment on that, but you know, it's just costume. You don't have to do this. But yeah, I'm just wrapping this like that, like that, like that. Cool. You know, and then later on I'm gonna take a more rougher sandpaper, maybe a file, and really shape these to make these round and stuff like that, at least for this one, right? And so now I can put this on my wrist, on my finger, in my hand, and now I have Olisi Palad, but it's kind of decorated, right? And yours can be longer on each end or even shorter, but what you're doing is you're loading your fist. So it's a harder fist when you have to make impact defending yourself. You understand? So this is how this is going to end up as a Olisi Palad technically, and then like Keychain Kubatan, rattan Kubatan, we're just treated slightly different. All right, so in this video we're gonna make a Kubatan keychain out of rattan. You can do it out of any hardwood, even plastic, if you have the proper tools to do so. This is just kind of a traditional look and feel using rattan. You don't have to do the embellishments that I have here, other than you just need a hole and the ability to put a key holder in. And then these are the Kubatans, or excuse me, the Olisi Palads, Olisi Palads. And this is just some cordage run through the middle of your palm stick, okay? And that way it allows you to keep your hand open in self-defense situations. to either thrust or backhand palm strike or hammer fist strike, or overhand strike, either way, and it loads the fist. Alright, and Filipino martial arts being what they are, it's good to have two of them, right? So we're just making two of these so that now you have one in each hand, right? So, you know, and then you can still open your hands to grab or grip or do what you need to do. So it's not a hard project to do. It's kind of fun. Again, I'm using rattan, which is a type of vine. It's not bamboo. You could probably use hickory, walnut, oak. You could possibly use bamboo, but bamboo is kind of fragile that way. So, you know, I'd be mindful of the type of material you want to use. You could use plastic as well, solid plastic. You could paint these however you want to paint them, and especially if you're going to use something like this as like as a keychain, right? You know, especially for you know, young ladies, you know, coming home late at night, they're working a night shift or whatever, they come home, you want to have at least something that you can, you know, do some damage with or ward someone off. I mean, you can at least hit the hand. That hurts. I mean, it's no joke. You know, you just put your hand right there and do that. See what happens. You know, you're gonna be like, ow. All right. So against the eye, the cheek, the neck, you know, the jawline, this is very formidable. You just got to know how to use it, and maybe there'll be more on that. But anyways, in this video, I'm just going to show how to make these.